This day in Sioux Falls history.
This day in Sioux Falls history is brought to you by Thomas James and Bechtold Jewelry, the oldest jewelry store in South Dakota, using time-tested techniques to restore and repair jewelry and using the latest technology to create custom pieces. Thomas James and Bechtold Jewelry, 325 South Phillips Avenue in downtown Sioux Falls. It was on this day, March 13th, 1891, a trial that would eventually turn to national importance kicked off near Sturgis. A Lakota Sioux warrior, Plenty Horses, was indicted on charges of murder in the death of U.S. Army Lieutenant Ned Casey. The trial would eventually be moved from the Black Hills to Sioux Falls, and the eyes of the nation were perhaps for the first time on our fair city. In short, Plenty Horses had shot and killed Lieutenant Ned Casey. It was just a few days after the Wounded Knee Massacre. It was undisputed that Plenty Horses was guilty of the act. In fact, even Chief Red Cloud explained to a reporter his own disapproval of the death of Casey, who Red Cloud deemed as a true friend of the Indian nation. However, Red Cloud declared the entire incident as an unfortunate byproduct of war. The question before the court would be, did Plenty Horses kill Casey in combat as one soldier against another, or was it a murder? It would take 2 trials before the case concluded by the end of May. In the first trial, the state painted a compelling image of Lieutenant Casey peacefully talking with a group of Sioux natives when he was unexpectedly shot and killed from the back by Plenty Horses. That bit of information, along with a declaration Plenty Horses had made while still back in the Black Hills, that he had killed Casey as a way to win the respect of his people after spending 5 years in the Carlisle Indian boarding school, led the jury to determine that Plenty Horses was guilty and deserved to pay for his actions. However, the 12-man jury was split right down the middle in deciding whether Plenty Horses should be charged with murder or manslaughter. Unable to break the deadlock, the judge called for the dismissal of the jury and a retrying of the case. In the second trial, the state hoped to strengthen their case and asked the general in command of Lieutenant Casey to come to Sioux Falls and testify that there was no official state of war between the U.S. Army and the Sioux warriors. General Miles replied that there was indeed a war being fought in the Black Hills, declaring to say that there was no war would reduce his entire campaign to a dress parade affair. To further stress his point, Miles sent Captain Frank Baldwin to Sioux Falls to testify for the defense in the second trial, that the U.S. Army also recognized the state of war between the Sioux and the Army. The second trial went much the same way as the first until Captain Baldwin testified. When the captain's testimony corroborated the testimony of the Sioux warriors, who had testified that they felt they were at war at the time of the killing, the judge put the court in recess for lunch and returned to his chambers to deliberate. Many of our history books, and I think accepted public opinion, tell us that justice did not exist for Native Americans in 1891, especially in a place like South Dakota. But in our study of the history of Sioux Falls, we've seen it play out again and again to disprove that notion. And in a makeshift courtroom right after a recess for lunch, a United States District Court judge proved it wrong again, and he did it in style. Upon returning from lunch recess, Judge Oliver Perry Shiras instructed the jury to find Plenty Horses not guilty for the murder of Lieutenant Casey. He stated that testimony provided proved beyond a doubt that there was a state of war in existence between the two parties. If not officially, then certainly in reality. He further challenged the state with 2 questions. If Lieutenant Casey had killed Plenty Horses in the same way, would he be standing trial for murder in this courtroom? And then he dropped the trump card and asked, if a state of war did not exist at the time, should every soldier who had killed a Sioux warrior at the same time stand trial for murder just as Plenty Horses had? Fortunately, the Plenty Horses case was the final chapter in the Dakota Indian Wars, and for the most part, the Indian Wars across the country. However, it is unfortunate that the precedent Judge Shiras had created could not be utilized by other warriors caught in similar situations as the young Sioux Plenty Horses. We can all appreciate this precedent and the fact that it took place here in Sioux Falls in the 1800s to prove us as a place of justice, above racism, above favoritism, and even above public opinion. I believe his ruling was a signal to all nationalities, races, and cultures in and around Sioux Falls that still exist today. Everyone is due a fair shake, white, black, native, or otherwise. If you show up and work hard and play by the rules, you should never have to fear the repercussions of the government. That's a signal we can all get behind in Sioux Falls. This day in Sioux Falls history has been brought to you by Thomas James and Bechtold Jewelry.
Hi, this is Thomas James with Thomas James and Bechtold Jewelry. We're absolutely honored to be able to look back on the history of Sioux Falls because we feel we're part of that. But we always look forward to the future and working with your grandchildren. It's more than jewelry, it's love. Come and see us at Thomas James and Bechtold Jewelry at 325 South Phillips Avenue, downtown Sioux Falls.